What's up, everybody? It's Brandon again, and welcome back to another episode of Murata Media. And today, I'll be doing a review of the newest John Travolta flick, The Fanatic. If you saw my Godzilla review, then you can probably tell where this is going based off this humongous bag of chips. And it basically means that I didn't really like the movie that I'm reviewing all that much. But yeah, this movie is not very good, but it's a trip. It's definitely a trip, I'll give it that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So The Fanatic tells the story of a man named Moose who has a hobby of collecting celebrities' autographs. And when he finally has an opportunity to get the autograph of his favorite actor in the world, Hunter Dunbar, he jumps on the opportunity. But Hunter kind of turns him down in a pretty rude way, and this sets Moose over the edge. There's a movie that came out in 1996 called The Fan, where Robert De Niro plays this guy who becomes obsessed with his favorite baseball player, played by Wesley Snipes, and that's pretty much what the whole plot synopsis of this movie is. But the only difference being that in this movie, he's stalking a movie star instead of a baseball player. So I heard about this movie from a lot of different places, and let's just say that they really weren't good things. One of my favorite YouTubers, Chris Stuckman, made one of his famous hilariosity reviews when reviewing this movie. It currently holds an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and during its opening weekend in theaters, it made just a little over $3,000. So I guess you could say this movie really wasn't that popular with people. But I, for one, was not deterred by everything I was hearing about this movie because I knew I just had to check this thing out. And so I made the very questionable decision of spending $4 to rent this movie on YouTube to watch it, so that way you didn't have to. So let's just jump right into this thing, shall we? Oh, John Travolta, man. What can I say? What can I say about John Travolta? It really is starting to become more and more apparent to me that this guy is just losing his edge, because his performance in this movie is just completely laughable. I wouldn't say it's Battlefield Earth laughable, but it's definitely up there. And the reason his performance suffers so much is because he goes so above and beyond, and not in a good way. I mean, for God's sake, this is the first line we hear and how we are introduced to his character.
I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
Oh. But I think I would be able to forgive his over-the-top performance if his character of Moose was actually likable. Because while his performance definitely is over-the-top, I mean, you could tell that he's trying, but Moose as a character is just so unlikable and dumb. It's pretty clear that this guy is not mentally well because he constantly shows that he has these stalkerish tendencies that all of his friends don't really seem to notice, or they might notice them and they just push them off to the wayside. And plus, Moose is just a bumbling idiot. And that's apparent when you get gem scenes like this.
Gotta get you a drink.
Yeah, just have a strawberry milkshake with real ice cream, please.
Yeah, we don't have milkshakes, but I can make you a cocktail or pour you a soda.
No thanks. Just want a shake.
But Moose isn't the only idiot in this movie, because his friends, or the people that he interacts with, are all pretty stupid too. There's his friend Leah, who, according to the actress's IMDb page, is 24 years old. So if her age is the same in this movie, I really want to know how a 24-year-old girl became friends with a 65-year-old man-child. And she's pretty useless to the plot. Her only purpose was to drive the story forward by showing Moose this app that gives you the location of all these celebrities' homes in Los Angeles, which is an incredibly dumb thing to do considering all of the tendencies that Moose has showed us up until this point. Moose dresses up like a stereotypical British cop and entertains people. You know, he's one of those guys that just makes money off tourists by getting pictures. There are these other guys who he works with on Hollywood Boulevard who hustle people by doing these fake stunts. Like, one of them puts a nail through his nose and it's not real, but all the tourists think it's real, so they give them a bunch of money. And the guys who do these stunts are just dicks to Moose throughout. Like, for no real reason either. They're just bullies, pretty much. They constantly try to get him to join them, but his answer is always, no, I can't. I don't want to steal from people. But these guys are relentless because they constantly just harass him for no reason. Like, in one scene, they're cornering him in a bathroom, and then this security guard, who I guess guards the bathroom, comes out of nowhere and saves the day. And then he tells Moose that he needs to learn to stand up for himself and not let people push him around like that. And later on, when Moose runs into one of these guys again and they start harassing him again, we get the greatest scene in cinematic history.
You make some fucking cash, bitch! I wish Freddy Krueger would come and chop off your head, and it would roll in the street, and a truck would squish it, and the blood would splatter everywhere, and everyone would watch it!
Pure gold. But the bathroom security guard from earlier notices all of this, and he's like, yeah, good job, Moose. You stuck up for yourself. Never mind the fact that you just nearly strangled that guy to death and showed really violent tendencies. Good for you. I'm proud of you. And that's one of my other biggest issues with this movie. All of the side characters are either incredibly nice to Moose or they're just absolute dicks to him. There really isn't any in between. Like, there's this guy at the beginning who owns, like, a memorabilia store that Moose frequents, and he sells Moose one of Hunter Dunbar's vests from a movie that he was in. He says that he's charging $800 for it, but he gives it to Moose for free, and he says, pay it to me by the end of the year. Oh, and on top of that, he knocks off $500. So he tells Moose, I'm gonna sell you this $800 vest for $300, and I want it by the end of the year. I just don't understand why everyone is so nice to Moose, because this man is clearly insane. And another thing this movie falls victim to is introducing these other plot points and then just forgetting about them entirely. Like, there's a scene we get with Hunter Dunbar and his maid. Moose breaks into Dunbar's house and he's in the backyard, and Dunbar's maid sees Moose outside, and she tells him later on that she saw a man in the backyard, and she's clearly shaken up by this. And what does Hunter Dunbar do? He comforts her and then proceeds to kiss her. And she's like, no, we can't do that anymore. We can't do that again. And then later on, Hunter Dunbar is on the phone with somebody and he's like, hey, guess what? I kissed the maid again. Like, I guess they've had, like, a romance before, but it's not really important to the plot, and it's never brought up again after that, so why the hell are we being told about it? And hilariously, there is something that happens to this maid along the way, and then everyone kind of just forgets about it. And it's a pretty big thing, but somehow nobody seems to notice. And I was really low-key hoping that it would never be brought back up again, because that would just show the incompetency of this script. But they bring it back up again at the end of the movie, so great job, Fred Durst. You done good. I'm proud of you. And the script is easily this movie's biggest issue. Like I said before, the characters are all dumbasses, and there are several plot points that are just thrown in the trash. And of course, it doesn't help that this movie is very poorly directed. And if you notice the name I said before, this movie was directed by Fred Durst. Fred Durst, the lead singer of Limp Bizkit.
All right, partner. Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is.
And I've never cared for Fred Durst because he's always come off as this narcissist. And there is a scene that perfectly showcases this.
You like a little Limp Biscuit?
Sure.
You like a little biscuit?
Yeah.
Yeah? Listen loud. I used to listen to this back in the day. This is hot. Oh my God, that is nice. That is nice.
And at this point, that's when I realized This movie has no point. Because I legitimately said to myself, why do I feel like Fred Durst wrote this entire movie just so he can give a shameless plug to his band in one scene? And what father asks their son if they want to listen to Limp Bizkit? Does anyone listen to Limp Bizkit anymore? And the overall theme of this movie just seems so tone deaf. It's stated several times throughout that if you're famous, you're nothing without your fans. And yes, while I do understand that because you don't have a platform if you don't have fans, but the way this movie presents it is just so dangerous. And the message seems like it's you need to stick by your fans regardless, no matter how crazy they are, no matter how obsessed they are with you, you need to stick by their side because they gave you the platform to do what you love to do. And that just seems like a really dangerous message to me because so many famous acts, musicians especially, have been murdered by crazed fans. John Lennon, Dimebag Darrell, Christina Grimmie were all murdered by their fans because they were just so obsessed with them. And maybe I am overlooking it and that wasn't the message that was intended, but it definitely came across that way. And this message, I think, is even pushed further by the ending, because the ending to this movie is one of the most anticlimactic yet kind of hilarious endings that I have ever seen. Because throughout this whole sequence, nothing really happens, and then when something finally does happen, it is done in the most minimal way possible. And just when you think you know where the ending is gonna go, it doesn't go that way. In fact, the ending to this movie was pretty awful. I mean, this whole movie is awful, so who am I kidding? But I'll just say that Moose suffered really no consequences, well, sort of, for everything that he's done throughout this whole thing. Stalking this man, breaking into his home, and physically assaulting people, he suffers no consequences really because of that. And to me, that just further pushes the message of you can do whatever you want as a fan of somebody and there will be no consequences. Especially with all the things I see on YouTube these days of fans coming to YouTubers' homes uninvited. And some people have said that this movie falls into the so bad it's good category, and I honestly disagree. Well, yes, this movie does have its fair share of hilarious moments. There was not once in this movie where I said to myself, this is so terrible that I am enjoying myself. This movie is just terrible. Terrible script, terrible direction, an over-the-top performance by John Travolta, and just a flurry of these stupid, unlikable characters really just destroys everything this movie could have had going for it. And honestly, this movie really doesn't have anything going for it. And it's for that reason that I am going to give The Fanatic a whopping 1 out of 10. And I am only giving it that score because it had a few pretty hilarious moments. And that's it. That's the only reason. But there is one thing that I would like to say. I would like to express my sincerest apologies to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, for being so harsh on that movie when I first reviewed it. While it doesn't change my feelings on it, that movie still sucks. I apologize, Godzilla, for being so mean to you when you were clearly trying to do something, because I really don't know what this movie was trying to do. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my review of The Fanatic. If you guys saw this movie, first off, I'm sorry, and secondly, what did you think about it? Did you hate it? If you loved it, then what the hell is wrong with you? But if you like this review, then be sure to slap a like on it, and don't forget to subscribe. If you want to watch my past reviews, then I'll link those right here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.